अच्छा
ज़्यादा पढ़ता तो उसमें फिर एमएस लगा देते थे। हाँ भैया।
हेलो, ठीक है, हाँ ठीक है। Okay. We are again back with the lecture series on current affairs. Today we are going to deal with 5 topics that are of prime importance from prelims and mains aspect. The first one is production linked incentive scheme for food processing industries. The government has extended the existing production linked incentive scheme that was earlier released for other products, around 26 commodities, for the production of around 26 commodities, including the electronics manufacturing sector, has now been extended to food processing sector. Food processing sector is one of the champion services sector, although it has not been officially declared as a champion services sector, but the amount of the capacity of employment generation that this sector holds is immense, because the food processing sector is in the very basic and primary stages of development in our country, and moreover it is a personnel intensive sector, in the sense that it employs a huge amount of people, so it has a higher employment generation capacity. So let's start this lecture with production linked incentive scheme for food processing industries. So why news? Because cabinet has approved what this central sector scheme. Now central sector scheme means all the burden is being borne by the central government. Okay, production linked incentive scheme. It seeks to, what the aim of the scheme is, it seeks to create global manufacturing champions of the sector of what? Food processing industries, and so that India's food products can be made competitive on the international scale as well as in the domestic market, because the kind of economy that we are having right now, the kind of economic transition that we are going through, there will be a higher demand for packaged foods and processed foods. Okay, to meet that demand, either we will have to import that or we will have to domestically manufacture. So we have a very prime opportunity at this moment of point, that our food processing sector, in the sense that our demand for packaged and processed food is growing, our demand for healthy diet is growing. So to fulfill that demand, okay, the government is trying to trying to improve the food production sector and food processing sector in the country. Although we are one of the highest producers of food grains in the world, but still the production and the processing both are very different, in the sense that we lag very behind in in the ranking of food processing sector vis-a-vis other countries. Okay? To support Indian brands, it has two prime aims. The first one is to increase manufacturing or to increase the food processing sector, that is on the industrial scale. Okay, the intervention in the industrial processing sector, the first one. And the second one is promotion of the brands. Okay, formation of global brands, like one of the very important global brand in the food processing sector is not global, domestic brand is Amul, and the other is Mother Dairy. These are two dairy processing sector industries. Okay, so they have now become a brand, and they have a brand value due to which they have got a recognition throughout the world and throughout the India also. And now government wants to create a similar brand value of food processing sector of India, the processed food that is being produced in India. Okay, so now what is the current status of food processing sector in India? This one is evolution of global food demand. Kindly pay attention to this one. Indicators along this line and along this line we have indicators, and this shows the demand, the kind of demand these indicators represent. The first one is surviving and carbohydrate staples. That is those countries which are least developed or poor. The basic demand of food in those countries is about surviving, and that demand arises from the energy demand. the kind of energy requirement that population has. The food demand arises from the kind of energy demand that the population has. And the basic energy demand is fulfilled by carbohydrate staples like potato. Now, sub-Saharan Africa and other African countries and the least developed countries are in this category. India, China and Latin America have now evolved a mass market for food industry, where dairy, meat, fresh fruit, fruit juices, beverages. Our mass demand for the processed food arises from dairy, meat, okay, and beverages, processed beverages and all these things. Now you can see USA, Japan and Western Australia, of course Australia and Western Europe countries, the most developed countries that we see, their demand is about diet functional and organic foods. The demand for organic foods and diet functional. Diet functional in the sense what kind of diet they are going to, they are nutrition conscious. The people are getting nutrition conscious, and their other indicator is high technology. That means the food processing sector is very high tech and is catering to the demand of a very specific and very diet functional and organic kind of foods. Okay? The second is share of manufacturing of processed food in the manufacturing GVA as well as the total GVA. What is GVA? GVA is gross value added. Yeah, gross value addition. Gross value addition means आप कोई एक basic product लीजिए and you are going to make some changes in that product. When the product finishes that process, its value gets changed. The amount of value addition that you have done is called gross value addition. ठीक है? So gross value addition is a method of calculating GDP. But gross value addition is a better method of calculating the amount of intermediate value addition that are being done in the processing of a commodity. Now, in India, for 2017, the total gross value addition, food sector contributed to 1.7% of the total gross value addition in the country. That is very low. Now we will see, as compared to other countries like New Zealand, it has 4.6% and Indonesia has 7.5% of the total GVA. The food sector contributes to 7.5% of the total GVA addition or gross value addition of Indonesia. Whereas for manufacturing, it is 35.5%. Almost more than 1/3 of the gross value addition in manufacturing sector is going to what? Food processing sector in Indonesia. Indonesia is a relatively smaller country and it is also resource deficient. So it is trying to make money from the existing relative advantages or relative comparative advantages, rather we say. Relative comparative advantages in the sense, okay, what is a relative comparative advantage? Relative comparative advantage is if a country A is having better technology, better resources for production of one good as compared to country B, then A is having a comparative advantage over country B in the production of that particular good. But country A might not have the similar kind of comparative advantage with respect to other goods. Country B might have the comparative advantage with respect to other goods. Similarly, that means Indonesia, New Zealand, these countries are having a higher percentage of food processing as their manufacturing GVA. Okay, that is, they are not relying upon heavy industries like steel, manufacturing of car for their manufacturing sector, but they are relying heavily upon what? Manufacturing of processed food beverages. That is, food sector पे बहुत ज़्यादा dependent है Indonesia, New Zealand, Australia, ये सारे countries as compared to heavy industries. Okay, so that means food sector, India is having a very low proportion of what? Food processing sector as a percentage of manufacturing GVA, and that is around 9.7%. It is very low. When we have very low proportion or contribution to the total GVA, then what can we do? We are having a higher opportunity, because these countries are now around saturation of their maximum capabilities, because they are operating around 35 point like 30 to 35%. Sorry, they are operating about around 30 to 35%. That means they have already achieved their peaking. ठीक है, so they are not going to their marginal benefits in investing these sectors are not going to be very high. Whereas for India, okay, I'm going to tell you one very important thing. It's a graph, it's a curve. It is going to be very helpful whenever you are trying to make analysis of marginal gains. Okay, this is called Preston curve. Okay, so if a country is at this point and if a country is at this point, okay, so the marginal change, and this represents input, this represents output. Now you can see that if a marginal change in the input of A, let's say it A, let's say it B, if there is a very marginal change in input of A, if there is a very marginal change in the input of A, the corresponding change in output of A is higher. This is what I'm trying to demonstrate. That is, if there is a very small change in input of A, the change in output of A is very high as compared to B. If there is even if there is a very large change in input of B, still there is not going to be very huge change in output of B. ठीक है? That is, the countries which are trying to catch up have a higher marginal productivity. Okay, that is, if we are going to invest in this sector, then the output or the corresponding marginal gains in this sector are going to be high, and we are around 9.7%. We are way below. If this is 100%, okay, so we are way below. So we are having a very huge opportunity of earning higher gains in the terms of both output and what employment generation. So now this scheme also seeks to, now the very important thing is that in India agricultural linkages are not very well established, in the sense that these linkages are called backward linkages and these linkages are called forward linkages. This is agricultural industry. Despite the fact that we are one of the highest producers of food and food grains in the whole world, the linkages are not very strong, and the poor linkages lead to huge loss and leakages. Okay, backward linkages in the sense of supplies, forward linkages in the sense of marketing and sales. This is our export, this represents export, this is household consumption and value addition industry. Fine. So forward linkages, and there exists a deficit of forward linkages as well as backward linkages. Backward linkages में क्या है? Basic inputs like tractor and utilities like power and water and farm labor. So backward linkages as well as forward linkages are not very well established. The government has tried to rectify this and to address this through many schemes in the last 5 to 10 years. For example, in 2014, Agri-Cluster Scheme was brought. In 2014, Agri-Cluster Scheme, this scheme sought to form clusters for common food processing sectors. That is, how the clusters are to be formed. For example, this is a production area, okay, one common warehouse. This whole production area can be considered one cluster. A common warehouse, common processing facility can be provided. Okay, this helps in utilization of economy of scale, in the sense that when a cluster is formed, a common facilities can be made available for different industries. Okay, these common facilities can be used by all. For example, testing and grading facilities, warehousing facilities, transportation facilities. Okay, these can be used by all of the industries. that seeks to promote investment in that sector. ठीक है, तो 2014 में जो एग्रीकल्चर क्लस्टर सेक्टर स्कीम जो आई, उसका मेन मोटिव यही था कि एग्रीकल्चर क्लस्टर बनाने थे और वहां पे कॉमन फैसिलिटीज का प्रोविजन करना था जो कि बाकी सारी इंडस्ट्रीज यूज कर सकती हैं. ओके, उसके बाद आई संपदा स्कीम. संपदा स्कीम को अभी हम देखेंगे. संपदा स्कीम वाज बेसिकली एमलगमेशन ऑफ 7 एग्जिस्टिंग स्कीम्स. जो 7 एग्जिस्टिंग स्कीम थी उनको एक में लाके संपदा स्कीम के फॉर्म में लिया. इट वाज अगेन लॉन्च्ड बाय मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर. वन नेशन वन फूड लॉ. One nation, one food law. This was launched by FSSAI so that a uniform standards of food laws can be brought in. ठीक है. And now 2021 में PLI for food processing sector, production linked incentive scheme for food processing sector. Okay, this is the evolution of how the government has been trying to address the deficits and how the government has been trying to utilize the existing infrastructure and develop the infrastructure for food processing sector. Now Sampada scheme, as I told, was amalgamation of 7 existing schemes. The first one is mega food parks. Mega food parks matlab setting up of huge food parks, integrated cold chain and value addition infrastructure. Sorry, integrated cold chain and value addition. That is one integrated the reefers, that is the cold storages and the cold storage vehicles. The whole logistical system should be integrated. Creation and expansion of food processing, the expansion of capacity of existing food processing industries. Infrastructure for agro processing clusters. Now again, infrastructure development, for example warehousing development for existing clusters of agro processing sectors. Creation of backward and forward linkages, the one we saw recently. Food safety and quality assurance, testing and quality assurance, and human resource and institutions. This is about training and development of human personnel in the sector of food processing sector. This was Sampada scheme launched in 2018. Okay. Now production link. What is production linked incentive scheme? In one of our earlier lecture also we saw what is production linked incentive scheme. Production linked incentive, as the name itself tells, is about providing incentives depending upon the production value or production volume. For example, in electronics manufacturing sector also the government has provided for production linked incentive schemes. For example, if a company is manufacturing 4,000 to 10,000 mobile phones in India, then they will be getting incentive on per phone per unit around 500 rupees. For example, this is a production link. This is the idea of production linked incentive scheme, incentivizing the manufacturing. That is the whole concept of production linked incentive scheme. Now, what are the objectives? The first one is expansion of processing capacity and branding abroad. As I told in the very beginning, it has 2 basic objectives. The first one is expansion of the existing manufacturing capacity, या production and processing capacity of the food processing sector. जैसे अगर टोमेटो से केचप बनाने वाली कंपनीज हैं तो उनकी प्रोडक्शन कैपेसिटी को इंक्रीज करना. ओके, and if the government is trying to incentivize its production, then it means that government is trying to help people build up industries in this sector. Okay, capacity and branding abroad to incentivize emergence of strong Indian brands. Strong Indian brands को promote करना और उनको incentivize करना by for example Ashok Masale or MDH Masale is one of the champions in this whole processing sector. If they are participating in this PLI scheme, so their products will be displayed in the foreign markets, in the shelves of foreign markets, and government will incentivize, government will provide some kind of financial help in obtaining, in achieving that. Okay, so it has 2 basic aims. The first one is increasing the processing and manufacturing capacity. The second one is promotion of brands and creation of brand value. Okay, second one is creation of global food manufacturing champions. Global food manufacturing champions in the sense कि for example Heinz is one of the global food champions, Coca-Cola is one of the global food champions. तो ऐसे brands इंडिया में बने उसके लिए ensure करना. ठीक है, ensuring remunerative price, of course, ensuring remunerative price to farmers for their produce. And the last one is increasing employment. Almost all of the development schemes are having what? A component of employment generation. Okay, so these are the main objectives of this scheme. We are going to see how this scheme is going to be implemented. The budgetary outlay for the scheme is around 10,900 crore rupees. It is for the period of 6 years from 2021 to 2026-27. Okay, as I told, it has two components. The first one is manufacturing. Now manufacturing has for the initial stages the government has chosen four important things for manufacturing. The first one is ready to cook, ready to eat, like frozen meat, okay, foods, processed fruits, okay, processed fruits, marine products, fishes, salmon fish, for example, mozzarella cheese. These four have been chosen for the initial stages, okay, and more industries will be included, more sectors will be included in this scheme on the later point of time. Now, innovative organic products. Now we can see that the market and demand of organic product is growing with a very fast rate. Okay. Or in Western countries, there is a huge demand that can be that can be met with Indian import. So now the government is also trying to incentivize not only the expansion of manufacturing capacity of existing food processing sectors, or not only incentivizing the manufacturing or setting up of manufacturing centers for food processing sector, but also it is trying to incentivize the organic foods, so that the demand for organic foods in the Western countries and in this urban centers of India also can be met. And there is a very huge opportunity for farmers to get very remunerative price. This all comes under the umbrella scheme of doubling farmers' income. Okay. So these two have been chosen for the time being. About branding and promotion, as I told, the government will secure for the companies, or the government will help those companies financially in brand promotion out of the country. Okay, so that the global brands in the food processing sector can be developed. Now, implementation of the scheme. The implementation will be इससे पहले we'll see this. The scheme is fund limited. It is fund limited. That is, the budgetary outlay has been set to around 10,900 crore rupees, and it is fund limited. That is, it does not incentivize an elastic value of production, but the incentive will be limited in the sense that ऐसा नहीं है कि आप 1000 metric ton produce करने लगेंगे तो आपको बहुत ज़्यादा मिल जाएगा as compared to like 100 metric ton. There will be a pre-settled agreement between the government and the industry, जिस पे पहले ही डिसाइड हो जाएगा कि आपको कितने पे और कितना इंसेंटिव मिलेगा और कितने तक का इंसेंटिव मिलेगा. That is, there is an upper limit to the amount of incentive one can get. Okay. It would facilitate expansion. Very important thing is 10,900 crore rupees का investment है, and it will facilitate the expansion of existing industries to the tune of 33,494 crore rupees. That is, investment of 10,900 crore rupees, around 11,000 crore rupees, will lead to the growth of money or the value up to the tune of 33,500 crore rupees. Another very important point is creation of employment. It will create nearly 2.5 lakh person, it will create employment for nearly 2.5 lakh people. Okay. Now this is going to be very game changing in the sense that the existing pandemic and prior to the pandemic as well, the employment rate in India has been very low. Hence, to address that, the scheme is going to be very helpful. That we'll see. Now, implementation of the scheme will be monitored by. Okay, there are two important things. The first one is monitoring, and the second one is evaluation. It will be monitored by an empowered group of secretaries. Okay, the secretaries are basically IAS, higher ranking IAS officers. It will be monitored by a group of secretaries, the group is to be headed by the cabinet secretary. Okay, the cabinet secretary is the highest IAS officer in the country. The Ministry of Food Processing Industries is the nodal ministry for the implementation. And the second part, the first one is monitoring, and the second part is going to be evaluation. So to avoid any kind of corruption, the monitoring and evaluation have been separated. Moreover, the evaluation has been kept under the third party's evaluation. That is an outside body, that might be a private body or Quality Council of India, for example, or that has not yet been decided. The guidelines of the scheme are yet being prepared, but the monitoring will be a monitoring will be done by the government secretaries only, but the evaluation of the implementation of the scheme will be done by a third party. Okay, and the ministry will prepare an annual action plan. Annual action plan मिनिस्ट्री प्रिपेयर करेगी, जिसमें कि एनुअल एक्शन के लिए और एनुअल टारगेट्स अचीव करने के लिए डिटेल्ड आउटलाइंस होंगे. दैट इज द स्कीम इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी टाइटली इंप्लीमेंटेड इन द सेंस कि मॉनिटरिंग, एक्शन प्लान और इवैल्यूएशन तीनों ही बहुत स्ट्रिक्ट एंड फर्म है. Okay. A special purpose vehicle. A special purpose vehicle is nothing but a special agency set up by government for implementation of some scheme that the government seeks to bring. Okay. तो in terms से आपको confuse नहीं होना है बिल्कुल भी. You have to be very clear about all these things. Economics में very important यही है कि आप सारी terms की definitions को बहुत अच्छे से याद कर लें. So the scheme is going to be implemented by Project Management Agency. Okay, it will be a special purpose vehicle that will be specially formed for implementation of this scheme. It will be this special purpose vehicle will be formed within the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, and it's the sole responsibility of this agency will be implementation of the scheme by setting up a portal for inviting applications, scrutiny of application for the scheme. Okay, now and then उसके बाद claims का disbursement of the incentive. तो mostly that means ministry के अंदर ही, food processing ministry के अंदर ही ये एक special purpose vehicle या implementing agency बनाई जाएगी. इस agency का काम होगा सारी applications को scrutinize करना और incentives का disbursement. और incentive payment is going to be for the next year, like for 2021 the incentive payment will be done in 2022. So that sums up the scheme, and this is a very important scheme from prelims point of view. Okay. The government has brought a very important policy document. Now what is a policy and what is a law? Policy is a guideline for the government or for the ministries. Policy is a broad outline of the thought process of ministries or the government. Okay, according to which the laws will be formed. The laws are not necessarily need to be compliant with the policy, but the concepts of better governance or good governance state that the law should be in compliance with the policy that the government outlines, because the government is itself outlining the policy. Now the government has brought this policy of rare diseases. Okay, national policy on rare diseases. Okay, so why news? Because the cabinet has approved, the cabinet has given the approval for national policy on rare diseases. This policy was earlier brought in 2017 also, but since this health and the public health is a state subject. Okay, so any kind of policy formation or the law that is being implemented, the state's consent is important. A policy is not legally implementable, fine, but still when a policy is formed, the laws are to be formed according to the policy. So whenever a policy is being formed also, then also the state governments need to be taken aboard. Okay, तो but 2017 में जो पॉलिसी आई थी उसमें कॉस्ट शेयरिंग और तमाम चीज़ों को लेके स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स और सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के बीच में डिस्प्यूट्स थे. Now this policy has taken aboard the states, and it's a very comprehensive policy, although there are a few lacunas in this as well, but still it seeks to address the deficit in the case of rare diseases. ठीक है, rare diseases क्या होती हैं? सबसे important तो ये है, there is no uniform definition of rare disease. ठीक है, because rare disease का classification is most of the time done on basis of prevalence of the disease as to how many people are getting affected. ठीक है, but there are other factors as well. For example, a disease might be rare in one country, it might not be rare in the other country. Okay, and a disease might be very much prevalent in the common population, and the very same disease might not be prevalent in some tribal population, for example. So when the tribal population comes into contact with the common population, the tribal population might get affected. So the सबसे important or the first thing is to define what is the rare disease. Most of the time it is done on the basis of the prevalence of the disease, है ना. तो WHO, World Health Organization, says that any disease that occurs in the proportion of 10 to 10,000, okay, 10 to 10,000, that is called a rare disease. Okay, 10 to 10,000 or 1 to 1,000, the same criteria, there is no change. 1 to 1,000 उतना ही है जितना 10 to 10,000 है. But whenever the rare diseases are defined, these processes or these constraints are not usually taken into account. For example, disease severity, whether the disease is life threatening or not, whether there are alternative measures of treatment of the disease. Alternative measures in the sense जो conventional measures हैं, for example allopathic treatment is a conventional method of treatment using allopathic diagnosis, and then the standard conventional diagnosis, the conventional medicine. And alternative treatment is using Ayurveda, Unani, and all these treatments. Okay, even genetic treatment is one kind of alternative treatment. Okay, if for example there was a case in China where a scientist, there were very ethical considerations about that a scientist brought a change in the genetic code of two children whose parents were HIV infected. So, but the children were healthy because that person brought about a change in the genetic code itself, and he cured, and he basically prevented the HIV from getting transmitted from parents to the children. Because that was done in vitro, the children were not yet born, it was done into the fetus itself. But that has ethical considerations as well. But still, that kind of genetic treatment will be considered what alternative treatment. ठीक है, तो इन चीज़ों को मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम कंसीडर ही नहीं किया जाता, जिसकी वजह से डिजीज़ का डेफिनेशन बहुत इंक्लूसिव नहीं है या बहुत एक्यूरेट डेफिनेशन नहीं है. ओके, तो अलग अलग कंट्रीज़ का डेफिनेशन अलग है, अलग अलग कंट्रीज़ का ट्रीटमेंट का प्रोसीजर भी अलग है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इन यूएसए में प्रेवलेंस ऑफ डिजीज के बेसिस पे डिफाइन किया गया है, एंड व्हेन 6.4 पर 10,000 में 6.4 पीपल से कम है अगर, तो दैट विल बी कंसिडर्ड व्हाट अ रेयर डिजीज. बट डब्ल्यूएचओ क्या प्रिस्क्राइब करता है, 10 पीपल से अगर कम है, 10 पीपल ओवर 10,000 पीपल, so that will be considered rare disease. But countries on the basis of their own epidemiological data, they have formed these standards. And Europe में 5 से हैं, कनाडा में 5 है, जापान में 4. तो अगर किसी डिजीज के इतने नंबर ऑफ पेशेंट्स हैं पर 10,000 ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन, तो वो डिजीज रेयर डिजीज मानी जाएगी. यूएसए में एक लॉ है ऑर्फन डिजीजेस, ऑर्फन ड्रग्स एक्ट. रेयर डिजीजेस को ऑर्फन ड्रग्स एक्ट के थ्रू डील किया जाता है. ऑर्फन ड्रग्स कौन सी होती हैं? ऑर्फन ड्रग्स आर दोज ड्रग्स जिनका मैन्युफैक्चरिंग अगर गवर्नमेंट सपोर्ट ना मिले तो पॉसिबल नहीं है. क्यों? बिकॉज उनका प्रोडक्शन और मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बहुत कम लेवल, बहुत छोटे लेवल पे होता है. द फर्स्ट थिंग, उनका प्रोडक्शन का रिसर्च कॉस्ट और प्रोडक्शन का कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन इटसेल्फ इज सो हाई दैट नो कंपनी इज गोइंग टू टेक इट. Like no company is ready to take the production of that drug. तो यूएसए में कौन सा लॉ है? ऑर्फन ड्रग्स एक्ट. ऑर्फन ड्रग्स कौन सी होती हैं? जिनका प्रोडक्शन गवर्नमेंट की हेल्प के बिना पॉसिबल नहीं है. ओके, तो बट इंडिया में भी यही प्रॉब्लम है, द लैक ऑफ एपिडेमियोलॉजिकल डेटा. तो इंडिया में अभी एपिडेमियोलॉजिकल डेटा इतना बेहतर नहीं है, इतना रिफाइंड क्वालिटी का नहीं है कि गवर्नमेंट, so that the government can make a decision about making what kind of disease as a rare disease. Okay, so in that case what government has done, government has started the evaluation of the rare disease, and ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, has been directed to prepare epidemiological data so that the prevalence of disease can be, there are many diseases which are rare diseases, okay. So for those diseases, a prevalence data can be obtained from ICMR's epidemiological data. Now the government has directed Indian Council of Medical Research to do that. But what are the problems, what are the issues with rare diseases? The first one is lack of awareness among both the public and the medical fraternity. आपको बहुत most of the times rare disease का diagnosis नहीं हो पाता है using the usual medical techniques, due to which what happens is कि for example, one goes to a doctor for some symptom and the symptom is being treated without even identifying the underlying cause, and that underlying cause might be some rare disease, and the person dies because of the unavailability of the proper treatment, because the diagnosis at the first hand was not done in the right manner. So there is a lack of awareness in the both medical fraternity as well as the public, yani doctors and public, the both are having ignorance about the rare diseases. The second one is lack of research and development. Since the prevalence of the disease is very small, that is not more than 2,000 people in the whole country are getting infected by it, or 5,000 people are in the whole country are getting infected by it, and moreover, not more than like 80% of the diagnosis is not being possible. ठीक है? Most importantly, the diagnosis of the rare disease is not being properly done, जिसकी वजह से research is also lagging. क्यों? क्योंकि research जब patients आएंगे उन्हीं के basis पे तो research किया जाएगा. अब patients ही properly नहीं आ पा रहे हैं, तो एक standard जो research methodology है, that includes statistical analysis, तो that is not feasible, जिसकी वजह से research में भी बहुत poor research है rare disease के correlated. ठीक है? Lack of treatment. Only 7,000 rare diseases में से 7,000 known rare diseases, I would rather say 5% of the diseases का ही खाली treatment development हो चुका है, यानी around only about 5% of the rare diseases जो कि जिनका total number more than 7,000 है, only 5% are treatable. So the treatment methodology has not been yet developed fully. Okay. Very important thing is prohibitive cost of treatment. There is one rare disease, muscular atrophy. Muscular atrophy. Okay. Muscular atrophy is a rare disease. Its prevalence is less than 5 in 10,000 people, okay, in India, and its treatment is only one time. एक injection लगेगा and the patient will be cured. Its treatment is as simple as that. But that injection costs around 1.6 crore rupees. 1.6 crore rupees, yes. इसका injection का cost है rupees 1.6 crore. But एक ही injection में इंसान ठीक भी हो जाता है. Muscular atrophy. तो prohibitive cost of treatment. This is simply unaffordable. Okay. Now about the policy. The very first thing that the government has done is classification of the rare diseases. The first one is it has classified the disease into 3 groups. ठीक है? 3 groups of diseases have been called rare diseases. The first one is the group 1, diseases needing one-time treatment like muscular atrophy. Those diseases which can be cured after one single treatment. ठीक है? Like muscular atrophy. The second one is those requiring lifelong treatment. Group 2 और group 3 दोनों में एक similarity है कि both require long time treatment. But the important thing about group 2 is कि the costs are relatively low as compared to group 3 diseases. Okay? And the group 3, the diseases which are cost prohibitive, the first thing, and which are time taking in the sense कि lifelong treatment चल सकता है. So the classification has been done into 3 groups depending upon the kind of treatment and the time of treatment, not on the basis of prevalence of the disease. because of the lack of epidemiological data with Indian government. Okay, the second feature basically is prevention and control of rare diseases. The first one is primary prevention. Primary prevention seeks to prevent the birth of a child having rare disease. Okay, how can that be prevented? Sorry, प्राइमरी प्रिवेंशन और सेकेंडरी प्रिवेंशन दोनों ही इस बात के ऊपर स्ट्रेस करते हैं कि सो दैट अ डिफेक्टिव चाइल्ड इज नॉट बॉर्न. ठीक है, अ चाइल्ड विथ दिस रेयर डिजीज इज नॉट बॉर्न एट फर्स्ट हैंड. उसके लिए सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट क्या है? प्राइमरी प्रिवेंशन एंड सेकेंडरी प्रिवेंशन. प्राइमरी प्रिवेंशन में ऐसे कपल्स को प्रिवेंट करना मैरी करने से जिनके पास जेनेटिक कैरियर्स हैं या पॉसिबल जेनेटिक फ्लॉज हैं, जिसकी वजह से उनके जो प्रोजेनी होगी, उनके जो चिल्ड्रन होंगे, दे माइट बी कैरी द रेयर डिजीज. ओके, बट दिस इज नॉट अ वेरी practical method because people will marry, they want to marry irrespective of the fact कि they might have children who might carry rare diseases. The second one is secondary prevention. The first one is primary prevention. Primary prevention is trying to disallow people or trying to dissuade people. Basically, you cannot disallow people from marrying. Right is a fundamental right under Article 21. So the government cannot disallow people. If one wants to marry, they can marry of any person of their choice. The second one is preventing the birth of a defective child. Once the conception has been done, okay, then it's very important to have a diagnosis of the child, ki whether the child is having any genetic defect or any kind of defect that might be a rare disease. Okay, now that defect is primarily identified in the third trimester or the late second to third, beginning of the third trimester. तो इसलिए there was amendment bill, there was maternity medical termination of pregnancy bill 2021 that has now been passed. MTP Act अभी बन चुका है, and we learnt that in that bill the government has now allowed extended the time frame for abortion from up to 20 weeks to 24 weeks. Okay, so that puts the whole process into the third trimester as well. So that act and amendment into that act and the policy in this policy are in very coherence, in the sense that the government wants to prevent the birth of a defect, the child with kind of genetic or a kind of rare disease. ठीक है, तो but the very important factor is कि these diagnoses are very costly. Okay, the diagnosis of a rare disease into the fetal stage is a very costly thing, so it cannot be provided to all. तो अब ये प्रोवाइड किया जाएगा उन लोगों को, बेसिकली उन विमेन को जिनकी कोई प्रीवियस हिस्ट्री है रेयर डिजीज का, या उन विमेन को जिनके यहाँ हाई चांस ऑफ रेयर डिजीज होने का हाई चांस है. ओके, इन दैट केसेस, स्पेसिफिक केसेस, government will incentivize what? The identification and termination of pregnancy. The third one is tertiary prevention. Tertiary prevention is once the person is born and he is living with the disease, the third level of prevention or the tertiary prevention talks about the rehabilitation of that person. मतलब once you are affected with one disease and which is not curable at the first hand, so what can you do? Your rehabilitation, your counseling can be done so that the efficiency or the productivity of your existing life can be improved. So this was the three levels of preventions. That was prevention. This is curing, and the third agenda of this policy is about, we'll see. The second is Center of Excellence and Nidan Kendras. Now central government will notify, and it has notified it also. AIIMS Delhi is one of the hospitals that will be considered as Center of Excellence. Center of Excellence will be set up by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It's a very important to remember that Center of Excellence will be identified by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, whereas Nidan Kendras will be set up by Department of Biotechnology. Okay, so Center of Excellence will be those centers या ऐसी hospitals basically जहाँ पे केयर फॉर दीज, जहाँ पे मतलब प्रिवेंशन और क्योर फॉर दीज डिजीजेस इज बीइंग प्रोवाइडेड. ओके, लाइक मस्कुलर एट्रोफी का अगर गवर्नमेंट किसी को लीगलाइज कर रही है, ऑथोराइज कर रही है कि आप मस्कुलर एट्रोफी का ट्रीटमेंट प्रोवाइड करिए, तो दैट विल बी considered as center of excellence. The government has already notified many colleges, medical colleges in India that are to be considered as center of excellence. Now निदान केंद्र जहाँ पे यहाँ पे क्योर हो रहा है, वहाँ पे निदान केंद्र में बेसिकली मैनेजमेंट ऑफ द डिजीज है. मैनेजमेंट इन द सेंस कि रिहेबिलिटेशन वाला पोर्शन जो है वो. ओके, कि वंस अ पर्सन इज अफेक्टेड एंड द डिजीज नॉन क्यूरेबल. यहाँ पे कौन कौन सी डिजीज होगी? ग्रुप 1 डिजीज दैट आर वन टाइम क्यूरेबल. ग्रुप 2 और ग्रुप 3 डिजीज विल बी मेट विद दिस पोर्शन. ठीक है, क्यों? क्योंकि निदान केंद्र वहाँ पे काउंसलिंग, रिहेबिलिटेशन चीजें होंगी और सेंटर ऑफ एक्सीलेंस में ट्रीटमेंट होगा. सिंपल. ओके, features of the policy. This another one is Government of India support. Now financial support. Financial support will be provided for the group 1 diseases up to rupees 20 lakh. ठीक है. The second one is state governments can take up financing of the second group 2 disease. Group 2 disease are those diseases जिनका relative cost of treatment is low and that can be managed. ठीक है. Group 3 diseases are those diseases जिनका cost of treatment is very high, that is prohibitively high. ठीक है, and also takes lifetime or long term treatment. So we can see that financial assistance for group 3 disease has not been provided, and that is one of the contention that activists and all people are saying कि prevention of the third kind of group 3 disease has not been provided. And the second contention is that the government support, the financial support up to rupees 20 lakh is very low. तो गवर्नमेंट ने उस फंडिंग के डेफिसिट को पूरा करने के लिए वॉलंटरी फंडिंग का भी स्टार्ट किया है. जैसे प्रधानमंत्री नेशनल रिलीफ फंड है, वैसे ही एक फंड स्टार्ट किया जाएगा जहां पे लोग कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं, कॉर्पोरेट्स कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं, कंपनीज कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकती हैं, एंड CSR पॉलिसी को भी अमेंड किया जाएगा. कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी की जो पॉलिसी है उसको भी अमेंड किया जाएगा, सो दैट द फंडिंग इनटू दिस वॉलंटरी फंडिंग कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज CSR प्रोविजन. ओके, implementation will be done by 4 units. ठीक है, the first one is research, finance ministry, NPPA, DIPIIT. अब इन 4 units का काम ये होगा. Research will be done by DBT, Department of Biotechnology, ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, CSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. These 3 are being requested to take up research in these fields. Finance ministry will lower the custom imports. Imports अगर कोई बहुत heavy equipment जो कि बाहर से import कराना पड़ेगा इस डिजीज के ट्रीटमेंट में, तो दैट विल बी इम्पोर्टेड. तो इम्पोर्ट पे कस्टम ड्यूटी फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री लो कर देगी. NPPA इज बीइंग रिक्वेस्टेड टू कीप द कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन और कॉस्ट इन द मार्केट एज लो इन द कंट्री. एंड DIPIIT, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी, इन्वेस्टमेंट, ठीक है, एंड ट्रेड इज बीइंग रिक्वेस्टेड टू प्रमोट द लोकल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ ड्रग्स. ये DIPIIT विल फॉर्म laws and policies so that the manufacturing of these drugs within the country is being promoted. Okay, understood? So that was the national policy for rare diseases. Another important topic for the day is integrated health information portal. तो integrated health information portal is a very landmark development in the field of disease surveillance. अब disease surveillance का meaning क्या है? For example, corona outbreak हुआ and when there were around 500 confirmed cases, India ने lockdown लगा दिया. Okay, I'm talking about the confirmed cases in hospitals. But very important thing is कि इन diseases का outbreak हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है, या कौन सी disease नई outbreak हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है, इस चीज़ का assessment या surveillance ही disease surveillance है. ओके इंडिया में डिजीज सर्वेलेंस प्रोग्राम लॉन्च हुआ था 2004 में, दैट वाज कॉल्ड आईडीएसपी, इंडियन डिजीज सर्वेलेंस प्रोग्राम। ओके तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इट हैज व्हाई न्यूज, बिकॉज इट हैज बीन लॉन्च्ड बाय द मिनिस्टर ऑफ यूनियन मिनिस्टर फॉर हेल्थ एंड फैमिली वेलफेयर मिस्टर हर्षवर्धन। ओके इट वॉज लॉन्च ऑन अ टेस्ट बेसिस इन 2018 इन कर्नाटका। ठीक है, कर्नाटका में लॉन्च हुआ था 2018 में ऑन अ टेस्ट बेसिस, सो दैट इट कैन बी टेस्टेड अपॉन कि पूरे इंडिया में इसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कैसा रहेगा। एंड द थर्ड वन इज इट इज अ रिफाइंड वर्जन ऑफ आईडीएसपी, इंडियन डिजीज सर्वेलेंस प्रोग्राम का जो पोर्टल था या उस पूरा प्रोग्राम जो था उसको रिफाइन करके और टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट उसमें लाके ही ये इंडियन इंटीग्रेटेड हेल्थ इंफॉर्मेशन पोर्टल बना है या प्लेटफॉर्म बना है। तो इट बी ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड कि आईडीएसपी क्या है, लेजिस्लेटिव लॉज क्या है या लेजिस्लेटिव एग्जिस्टेंस कैसा था उस लॉ का, आईडीएसपी का कौन से मिनिस्ट्री के अंडर में है, एंड देन आईएचआईपी क्या है एंड हाउ इज इट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम आईडीएसपी। ओके तो आईडीएसपी वाज लॉन्च्ड बाय इंडियन गवर्नमेंट इन सपोर्ट इन फ्रॉम द हेल्प फ्रॉम वर्ल्ड बैंक इन 2004। 2004 से ये आईडीएसपी लॉन्च हुआ था इंडिया में। आईडीएसपी इज अबाउट maintaining the record of all of the country of certain kind of diseases, like there were 13 diseases initially, but at the later point of time there were 18 diseases। ठीक है, तो अब उन 13 डिजीज के आउटब्रेक को मैनेज करने के लिए, मॉनिटर करने के लिए पूरी कंट्री के अक्रॉस से डेटा हर वीक कलेक्ट किया जाता था। ठीक है, तो आईडीएसपी इज अंडर द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कंट्रोल ऑफ नेशनल डिजीज कंट्रोल सेंटर, डायरेक्टरेट जनरल ऑफ हेल्थ सर्विसेज, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हेल्थ एंड फैमिली वेलफेयर। दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, यू शुड नोट इट डाउन। ओके IDSP is under the administrative control of what? National Disease Control Center. Now this is very important. National Disease Control Center is a special purpose vehicle again within the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, जिसका डिपार्टमेंट कौन सा है? डायरेक्टरेट जनरल ऑफ हेल्थ सर्विसेज। ओके तो ये सारी मिनिस्ट्रीज मेंशन्ड है सिलेबस में, दैट इज व्हाई आई एम ऑलवेज स्ट्रेसिंग अपॉन कि यू शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ द बेसिक आउटलाइंस ऑफ इंपॉर्टेंट मिनिस्ट्रीज लाइक Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Finance, okay, Ministry of like Geographical Survey of India कौन सी मिनिस्ट्री के अंडर में आता है? ठीक है, Ministry of Mines. Most of times one person think that Ministry of Science and Technology के अंदर में हो सकता है या Department of Survey के अंडर में हो सकता है, लेकिन it is very important because it has been exclusively mentioned in the syllabus कि विच मिनिस्ट्रीज के अंडर में कौन कौन से डिपार्टमेंट्स आते हैं, ये सिलेबस में मेंशन्ड है। तो दैट इज व्हाई इट बिकम्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू इंपॉर्टेंट मिनिस्ट्रीज लाइक एज आई टोल्ड हेल्थ मिनिस्ट्री, एजुकेशन मिनिस्ट्री में कौन कौन से डिपार्टमेंट है, लाइक डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ स्कूल एजुकेशन है ना, डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ हायर एजुकेशन। ओके तो ये एक बेसिक गवर्नेंस का स्ट्रक्चर इंडिया में कैसा है, दैट यू शुड बी अवेयर विद। ओके नाउ डायरेक्टरेट जनरल ऑफ हेल्थ सर्विसेज, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हेल्थ एंड फैमिली वेलफेयर। ओके इस मिनिस्ट्री के अंदर में आईडीएसपी आता है। इट इज अ वीकली सर्वेलेंस प्रोग्राम, वीकली सर्वेलेंस इन द सेंस कि हर वीक कुछ हेल्थ वर्कर्स जो कि ग्राउंड पे काम करते हैं वो जाते थे विलेजेस में एंड दे मेड एन असेसमेंट ऑफ द डिजीज प्रेवलेंस, कि जो स्पेसिफिक डिजीजेस थी उनके अगेंस्ट पूछते थे लोगों से कि आपको इन्फ्लुएंजा तो नहीं है, आपको खांसी तो नहीं है, बुखार तो नहीं है, इन सिम्टम्स के बेसिस पे और एनालिसिस होता था पूरी कंट्री लेवल पे कि कौन सी डिजीज का आउटब्रेक कहाँ हो रहा है, एंड देन इट वाज दैट डिजीज वाज बीइंग टारगेटेड। इट वाज अ वेरी रिवोल्यूशनरी आइडिया ऑफ डिजीज सर्वेलेंस, एंड नाउ IHIP, IDSP was one of the biggest disease surveillance program. Now integrated health information platform is one of the most technologically advanced program and the biggest program in the world. It is very important to note that. Technologically most advanced program and also geographically बहुत Okay, the one kind of I see there has been a data loss. कोई बात नहीं. Now IHIP, what it does is it's a e-governance vision of, it supports the e-governance vision of Ministry of Health, तो है ही. Integrates data from in the real time. It is a real time. IDSP was weekly monitoring. It is a real time monitoring. Okay. Now it reduces data and information fragmentation because okay there has been a loss of, I think this slide, I lost this slide. I don't know why, because the data might have been corrupted, but it's fine. I'll tell you. It was IDSP. Okay. IDSP was done on 4 levels. The first one is ground level, या village. Okay. Village level पे जो आंगनवाड़ी workers थे, आंगनवाड़ी workers. The second one is block level. The third one is district level. The fourth one is state level. Okay. अब IDSP was implemented in the 4 levels. Similarly, IHIP is also being implemented in the 4 levels. But earlier यहाँ पे physical spreadsheets होती थी लोगों के पास, जो आंगनवाड़ी workers होते थे उनके पास. पहले क्या था कि उनके पास paper based sheets होती थी, and they went to the villages to make an assessment of what kind of diseases people are suffering from, है ना. That was called syndromic assessment. Syndromic assessment. Okay. Syndromic assessment means the person is telling as to what kind of feeling I am having. Okay, I am having shortness of breath, I am having fever, ठीक है. But that has not yet been confirmed by a medical diagnosis. Okay. Similarly, block level पे इस सारे डेटा को इंटीग्रेट किया जाता था, फिर उसको स्टेट लेवल पे, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे इंटीग्रेट किया जाता था, फिर स्टेट लेवल पे इंटीग्रेट किया जाता था. यहाँ पे टेक्नोलॉजिकल अवेलेबिलिटी डिस्ट्रिक्ट और स्टेट लेवल पे ही थी. एक्सेल शीट्स बना के एंड देन ट्रेंड वाज ऑब्जर्व्ड. ओके. नाउ IHIP, व्हाट IHIP डज इज इट कलेक्ट्स द होल डेटा यूजिंग मोबाइल. ठीक है. अब आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स के पास मोबाइल होगा, एंड दे विल बी गोइंग डेली इन द विलेजेस टू मेक एन असेसमेंट. ओके. एंड सिमिलरली ब्लॉक लेवल पे जो सेंट्रल हेल्थ सेंटर्स हैं, CHCs, एंड उसके बाद डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे डिस्ट्रिक्ट हॉस्पिटल्स, एंड स्टेट लेवल पे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स के अपने जो डिपार्टमेंट्स ऑफ हेल्थ हैं. तो यहाँ पे टेक्नोलॉजिकल इम्प्लीमेंटेशन बहुत इंटीग्रेट कर दिया गया है. अलॉन्ग विद दैट जियोस्पेशियल इंफॉर्मेशन विल ऑल्सो बी इंक्लूडेड. ओके. पहले जियोस्पेशियल इंफॉर्मेशन इंक्लूड नहीं हो पाती थी. ठीक है. क्यों? क्योंकि इट वॉज डन थ्रू अ पेपर. नाउ whenever a person is going to a village, वहाँ के village का मैप, और फिर डिस्ट्रिक्ट ब्लॉक का मैप, डिस्ट्रिक्ट का मैप, स्टेट का मैप, एंड नाउ on a real time basis a heat map can be generated for the outbreak of any kind of disease. Okay. So this was a difference between IDEP and IHIP. Similarly, as I told, it integrates the geospatial information along with the real time data. Okay. Reduces data information fragmentation in the sense कि ब्लॉक लेवल और डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल का डेटा इंटीग्रेटेड नहीं था. ओके. तो क्यों? क्योंकि ऑफ कोर्स डेटा मैच कराने और बहुत सारी चीज़ों की वजह से लॉस ऑफ डेटा हो जाता है और डेटा फ्रैगमेंटेशन भी होता था. नाउ द होल पोर्टल हैज बीन यूनिफाइड. एक ही पोर्टल पे अपडेट कर रहा है ग्राउंड लेवल पे वर्कर, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे भी, स्टेट लेवल पे भी, ब्लॉक लेवल पे भी. तो द डेटा इज नाउ बीइंग इंटीग्रेटेड एंड इन अ वेरी the kind of data symmetry or the data integrity we want, we are getting now. ठीक है. Karnataka was the first state to implement this. Okay. Now geospatial information is also being integrated. I'll tell you how. अब पहले क्या था कि बस डिजीज प्रेवलेंस पूछा जाता था और क्वेश्चंस ऐसे होते थे, या जो असेसमेंट था वो हॉस्पिटल्स या आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स के बेसिस पे होता था, एंड इट वाज अबाउट द प्रेवलेंस ऑफ द डिजीज और द सिम्टम्स ऑफ द डिजीज और फ्रॉम द लैब रिपोर्ट्स. नाउ many changes have been included. The first one is demographic change. That means a socio-economic assessment is also being done ki what kind of people are facing what kind of health problems. Okay, so that will enable the policy makers, the hospitals and all the people to make a more informed decision about making health choices. Okay, environmental, behavioral, socio-economic, genetic and infectious risk factors also included. ठीक है, तो आपको ये गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी मेकर्स को ये पता चल जाएगा कि अगर किसी रिवर में फीकल कंटेंट बहुत ज़्यादा है, कॉलिफॉर्म बैक्टीरिया का कंटेंट हाई है, तो उस रिवर के अराउंड के जो विलेजेस हैं वहाँ पे इन्फेक्शन डिजीज ज़्यादा हाई हो रही हैं. इट्स अ काइंड ऑफ एक रिलेशन इस्टेब्लिश कर पाएंगे जो गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी बॉडीज़ हैं या गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स जो हैं, वो अब एक बेटर इन्फॉर्म्ड डिसीजन ले पाएंगे. ओके, अगेन आई वांटेड टू एक्सप्लेन समथिंग बट द picture has been lost. Old and new IDSP, the comparison I already told you. It was a weekly surveillance, it is a daily surveillance. It monitored only 13 health conditions. This monitors more than 33 health conditions are being monitored now. ठीक है, now you can see it is a snapshot from integrated health information portal. You can see a heat map is being generated for Karnataka. ठीक है, तो health condition has been marked as influenza और उसके बाद pathogen, state Karnataka and date has been also mentioned. तो you can see कि कौन से regions में infection का lab, this map is based on the lab confirmation reports. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे पता चल रहा है कि this region is having high rate of infection of influenza. ठीक, तो this is a real time map. Okay, so now visualization are being made easier. Okay, that will help the policy makers, the hospitals, the individuals also to make informed choices about health. ठीक है, the third important topic for the day is emergency credit line guarantee scheme. Now what is emergency credit line guarantee? The first one is what is credit line, है ना. अगर credit line पता है तो emergency credit line तो emergency उसमें add करके और कुछ नहीं. Okay, तो credit line is nothing but a kind of loan. ठीक है, a kind of loan service. ठीक है, when you go to the bank to take loan, you make a lump sum loan. What you take? Lump sum. Lump sum loan is कि I want a loan of around 10 lakh rupees. ठीक है, that means there is one lump sum 10 lakh. Now you borrowed rupees 10 lakh from the bank. This is bank. You borrowed a lump sum of rupees 10 lakh. Now whether you use that 10 lakh or not, the bank is going to charge you a rate of interest on that. Okay, so that is lump sum loan, usually the retail loans that the people take. Now what if someone goes to the bank and says that please extend me a line of credit of rupees 10 lakh. It means कि please extend me a line of credit in the sense कि please offer me a bank account with rupees 10 lakh, very similar to credit card. ठीक है, credit card पे अगर आपके पास 50,000 का ओवरड्राफ्ट है, ओवरड्राफ्ट नहीं, अगर आपके पास 50,000 की लिमिट है आपके क्रेडिट कार्ड में, तो you can spend up to rupees 50,000. But you will be charged for only the amount which you spend. ठीक है, similarly if the bank extends you line of credit of rupees 10 lakh, so you can spend up to rupees 10 lakh from the same bank. ठीक है, but you will be charged an interest on the amount of which you spend. So this one is easier for us. ठीक है, but for banks line of credit becomes because asset classification becomes tough, because on the same rupees 10 lakh, one day of interest might be 7.6%, another day it is 5%, another day it is 4%, because of the market conditions or the prevalent loan conditions. But in this lump sum case, you and the bank have agreed कि 7.6% पे मैं आपसे 10 लाख रुपए का लोन ले रहा हूँ. तो यहाँ पे बैंक इज अवेयर कि उनका एसेट कितने रुपए का है और उस पर उसको कितना रिटर्न मिल रहा है. लेकिन लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट में इट बिकम्स कॉम्प्लेक्स टू क्वांटिफाई द अमाउंट ऑफ द एसेट, एक्चुअल एसेट दैट द बैंक ओज. ठीक है, क्योंकि ये 10 लाख आपको लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट तो इन्होंने दे दी, लेकिन आपने यूज 2 ही लाख रुपीज किए. ओके, तो इनका एसेट साइज एक्चुअली 10 लाख के बजाय 2 लाख हुआ. अंडरस्टूड. और यहाँ पे आप 10 लाख लोन लेके आप चाहे 1 लाख भी यूज ना करो, इन लोगों ने आपको 10 लाख का एसेट दे दिया है. दैट इज काइंड ऑफ डिफरेंस बिटवीन लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट एंड यूजुअल लोन्स या रिटेल लोन्स जो कि लोग लेते हैं. तो इमरजेंसी क्रेडिट गारंटी लोन स्कीम पैंडेमिक से जूझ रहे एमएसएमईज को, माइक्रो स्मॉल एंड मीडियम इंडस्ट्रीज को हेल्प करने के लिए इमरजेंसी क्रेडिट गारंटी लाइन स्कीम इंट्रोड्यूस की गई थी. ठीक है, इन 2020, इन अराउंड जून 2020. ठीक है, तो पर्पस वाज टू, ऑफ कोर्स अब मैं बता ही चुका हूं कि एमएसएमईज को हेल्प करने के लिए ECGLS 1.0, ECGLS 2.0 and ECGLS now we are talking about ECGLS 3.0. क्यों? क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट ने when ECGLS 1.0 was launched, इसका कॉर्पस फंड कितना था? ₹3 लाख करोड़. ठीक है, इसका कॉर्पस फंड कितना था? ₹3 लाख करोड़. आउट ऑफ विच only ₹54,000 crore is remaining as of today. बाकी का 2,46,000 crore had been extended already under ECGLS 1 and ECGLS 2. Now the remaining amount is 54,000 crore. Okay, understood. तो अब इस रिमेनिंग अमाउंट पे ECGLS 3 स्कीम को इंप्लीमेंट किया गया है. विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट. फर्स्ट वी विल टॉक अबाउट ECGLS 1.0. तो ECGLS 1.0 के सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट क्या था? द क्रेडिट प्रोवाइडेड टू द एक्सटेंट ऑफ 20% ऑफ द आउटस्टैंडिंग क्रेडिट अप टू ₹25 करोड़. अगर कोई कंपनी का 29th ऑफ द फरवरी तक पूरा आउटस्टैंडिंग लोन जितना भी हो, उसका 20% आपको क्रेडिट के फॉर्म में मिलेगा. ठीक है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आपका 100 करोड़ रुपीस का लोन है आपके पास एज ऑन 29th फरवरी 2020, इसका 20% कितना हो गया? 20 करोड़ हो गया, ₹20 करोड़. अब 20 करोड़ इज लेस देन 25 करोड़ या ग्रेटर देन 25 करोड़? लेस देन 25 करोड़. तो आपको 20 करोड़ का लोन मिल जाएगा. लेकिन अगर आपके पास आउटस्टैंडिंग लोन 200 करोड़ रुपीस का है, ओके, तो इसका 20% हो गया 50 करोड़. ओके, और 40 करोड़, सॉरी. अब 40 करोड़ इज लेस देन 25 करोड़ या ग्रेटर देन 25 करोड़? ऑफ कोर्स ग्रेटर देन 25 करोड़. तो आपको लोन तो मिल जाएगा, लेकिन कितनी वैल्यू तक का मिलेगा? ओनली अप टू 25 करोड़ रुपीस. ठीक है, ये था ECGLS 1.0. That was the whole credit scheme. अब इसके अंदर एलिजिबिलिटी was also fixed कि कौन कौन सी कंपनियां एलिजिबल हैं. The first one is NPA नहीं होना चाहिए. If account has been declared NPA, non-performing asset, that account will not be eligible for the line of credit under ECGLS 1.0, either ECGLS 1.0, 2.0 और 3.0. मतलब किसी भी इमरजेंसी क्रेडिट गारंटी लाइन स्कीम के अंडर NPA अकाउंट्स नॉट एलिजिबल है. ओके, इट मींस द गवर्नमेंट ओनली वांटेड टू प्रोटेक्ट दोज कंपनीज व्हिच वर फेसिंग द राथ ऑफ द कोविड, नॉट दोज कंपनीज जिनका ऑपरेशनल इनएफिशिएंसीज की वजह से NPA हो गया है. ओके, ओके, नाउ एलिजिबिलिटी. MSMEs up to ₹25 crore outstanding, up to ₹25 crore outstanding. Okay, and rupees 100 crore turnover were eligible. अगर आपके पास 25 करोड़ या तो आपके पास 25 करोड़ आउटस्टैंडिंग लोन हो या तो आपको टर्नओवर 100 करोड़ रुपीस के ज़्यादा हो तो आप एलिजिबल थे. अकाउंट्स मेंशन्ड एज एनपीए वर नॉट एलिजिबल. अगर किसी बैंक किसी एमएसएमई का आउटस्टैंडिंग लोन मोर देन 25 करोड़ है तो आपको क्रेडिट तो मिल जाएगा लेकिन अप टू द वैल्यू ऑफ 25 करोड़ ओनली. अंडरस्टूड. एंड इट हैड अ लाइक इसका टाइम पीरियड 5 ईयर्स का था जिसमें 1 ईयर मोरेटोरियम पीरियड था एंड 4 ईयर पेमेंट बैक. मोरेटोरियम पीरियड का मीनिंग क्या होता है? बिकॉज इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म बिकॉज आरबीआई ऑल्सो इम्पोज मोरेटोरियम ऑन पेमेंट ऑफ ईएमआईज एंड क्रेडिट कार्ड का जो बिल होता है वो पे करने पे भी लास्ट ईयर कोविड के टाइम आरबीआई ने मोरेटोरियम लगा दिया था. मोरेटोरियम इज कि when the government or when the bank is not asking you to pay the interest back, okay, that is called moratorium period. तो अगर जितना भी इस स्कीम में जितना भी लोन लेंगे तो 1 साल का तो आपको कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं देना है लेकिन नेक्स्ट ईयर से आपको इंटरेस्ट उस पर देना पड़ेगा. यानी फर्स्ट ईयर आप जिस साल लोन लेते हैं उस साल आपको कोई नहीं देना पड़ेगा लोन इंटरेस्ट लेकिन अगले 4 साल आपको लोन देना पड़ेगा, लोन पे इंटरेस्ट देना पड़ेगा. सिमिलरली ECGLS 2.0 was also brought. ECGLS 2 was also brought and the meanwhile RBI set up a committee called Kamath Committee to review the sectors that were affected because of coronavirus pandemic. So Kamath Committee identified 26 sectors that were affected badly due to the corona pandemic. But ECGLS was extended to not only the 26 sectors that were identified by the Kamath Committee, it was set up by not by government but by RBI, okay, and the healthcare sector as well. Along with the 26 sectors that the Kamath Committee identified, health sector was also included. Eligibility: companies with dues up to rupees 50 to 500 crore as of February 29, 2020. No turnover limit. The grant of credit होगा was similar, 20% of the outstanding loan as of 29th February 2020, subject to the upper limit of 25 crore. लेकिन एलिजिबिलिटी में यहाँ पे टर्नओवर लिमिट जो प्रीवियसली 100 करोड़ रुपीस की थी दैट वाज रिमूव्ड एंड जिनका ड्यूज 50 to 500 वहाँ पे आउटस्टैंडिंग लोन 25 करोड़ तक ही था, यहाँ पे 50 to 500 करोड़ तक भी एक्सटेंड कर दिया गया. अगेन द टेनर ऑफ द पेमेंट ऑफ द रीपेमेंट ऑफ द लोन का टेनर कितना था? 5 years with 1 year moratorium period. Now ECGLS 3 has been launched. ECGLS 3 is nothing but the extension of the existing scheme to what? The sector of hospitality, travel, tourism, leisure and sport. अब जो टोटल ECGLS का कॉर्पस फंड था वो कितना था? रुपीज 3 लाख करोड़. ठीक है, जिसमें से 2.46 लाख करोड़ हैज ऑलरेडी बीन एक्सटेंडेड. इतना तो एग्जॉस्ट हो चुका है गवर्नमेंट के पास. बचा कितना? 54,000 करोड़. ओके, अब दैट मीन्स जो एग्जिस्टिंग 27 कंपनीज हैं, सेक्टर्स हैं, प्लस हॉस्पिटैलिटी, ट्रैवल, टूरिज्म, लीजर एंड स्पोर्टिंग सेक्टर्स को एक्सटेंड किया गया है 54,000 करोड़ रुपीज. ओके, दिस इज द होल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ ECGLS 3.0. नाउ यहाँ पे चेंजेस किए गए हैं. क्रेडिट, एक्सटेंशन ऑफ क्रेडिट. अर्लियर 20% ऑफ द आउटस्टैंडिंग लोन था, नाउ दैट हैज बीन डबल टू 40%. ड्यूरेशन हैज ऑल्सो बीन इंक्रीज्ड फ्रॉम 5 years to 6 years with a moratorium period of 2 years. पहले 1 year का मोरेटोरियम पीरियड था एंड 4 year का पेमेंट बैक पीरियड. अब 2 years का मोरेटोरियम पीरियड है, मतलब 2 years तक आपको कोई लोन पे इंटरेस्ट नहीं देना है, लेकिन 2 years के बाद 4 years तक आपको इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट करना है. एलिजिबिलिटी विल ओनली बी कंसिडर्ड लोन्स लेस देन 60 days ओवरड्यू. ओके, फरवरी 29, 2020 को जो लोन्स 60 days ओवरड्यू थे, 60 days से कम, अगर 90 days ओवरड्यू हो जाएगा तो वो एनपीए कंसिडर हो जाएगा, है ना. तो एनपीए तो पहली बात तो एनपीए को अलाउ ही नहीं करना है. दूसरा इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट क्या है? ECGLS 3 में 60 days से ज्यादा ओवरड्यू होगा तो भी वो कंसिडर नहीं होगा. ओनली दोज लोन्स विच वर ओवरड्यू लेस देन 60 days दैट विल बी एलिजिबल. ओके, एंड टोटल क्रेडिट शुड नॉट एक्सटेंड बियॉन्ड 500 करोड़ रुपीज. फर्स्ट वाले में टोटल क्रेडिट शुड नॉट एक्सटेंड बियॉन्ड 25 करोड़ रुपीज. सेकंड वाले में टोटल क्रेडिट शुड नॉट एक्सटेंड बियॉन्ड 50 to 500 crore rupees, and the third वाले में again the 500 crore से ज़्यादा का outstanding credit नहीं होना चाहिए. तो this is all for the ECGLS. Okay, the NCGTC, National Credit Guarantee Trust Company. This is a company that is going to guarantee the loans under the ECGLS scheme. ठीक है. अब ECGLS में lending कौन कौन करेगा? Banking sector and non-banking financial sector दोनों करेंगे, private and public दोनों करेंगे. लेकिन अगर कोई MSME SBI से लोन ले रही है तो उस लोन वो लोन guaranteed होगा and without collateral होगा. That means उस MSME को कोई collateral submit नहीं करना है SBI को, but that will be guaranteed by NCGTC. NCGTC is a credit guaranteeing company. इस कंपनी का काम ही है कि क्रेडिट को गारंटी करना. मतलब SBI को ये गारंटी करेगी कि आप इस MSME को लोन दे दो, मैं इस लोन का पेमेंट बैक करने का गारंटी देता हूँ. It was formed in 2014. Existing 5 credit guarantee trusts पहले से थी, उनको पांचों ट्रस्ट को amalgamate करके NCGTC बनाया गया 2014 में. It is again, wherever you find it, you definitely and you must read it as to what is the Department of Financial Services, which ministry is that company or special purpose vehicle or agency is in. ठीक है. अब NCGTC is under the Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Finance. Okay. Registered with under the Companies Act 1956. It was launched with the corpus fund of rupees 10 crore on in 2014. Okay, that sums up the emergency credit guarantee line scheme and also NCGTC. Okay. Forest fires in India, why are we talking about? Because today is the 7th of April or 6th of April, and from the 1st of April itself, Uttarakhand has had more than like 40 fires, 40 events of wildfires. इससे पहले नागालैंड में, ठीक है, फॉरेस्ट, वी आर डिस्कसिंग फॉरेस्ट फायर्स इन इंडिया. इससे पहले नागालैंड की जोको वैली was also very severely affected. सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के हेलीकॉप्टर्स को बुलाना पड़ा था to dodge of the fire. ठीक है. तो along the Nagaland and Manipur valley, Zuko Valley is very important from the tourist point of view. यहाँ पे एक special lilies होती हैं. They are endemic and they are not found anywhere else. So we are talking about this because in just 5 days, Uttarakhand has recorded 361 incidents of forest fires. है ना? Okay. Now, these are two maps that I took from the Forest Survey of India 2019. Forest Survey of India for the first time also included the forest fires. ठीक है. So that is why I have brought these two maps. These two maps are very important because these two maps represent the vulnerability of the forests in India to the fire and also the rate of occurrence of forest fires in India. The first map shows the vulnerability and the second map shows the occurrence, actual occurrence. You can see the vulnerability of these regions is very high as compared to the other regions. And similarly, you can see the occurrence also in these regions is very high. Now, what decides the vulnerability? Vulnerability का meaning होता है कि आप how much are you prone to forest fire? Oh, sorry, not you. How much is the forest prone to forest fires? ठीक है. So there are many factors that decide it. There are many factors that decide it कि what are the leading, which forest is more prone to forest fire. So first of all, the reasons of forest fires. India में 94% of the forest fires are due to anthropogenic reasons. Anthropogenic reasons में man-made fires, cigarette lightings, normal fires, jhum cultivation, and all this. ठीक है. For example, slash and burn. You saw that in the northeast there is a very high density of occurrence of the events of forest fires. That is primarily due to the jhum cultivation. बिकॉज नॉर्थ ईस्ट में झूम कल्टिवेशन प्रैक्टिस किया जाता है. मेघालय, त्रिपुरा, Manipur, Nagaland, all these areas practice jhum cultivation where a patch of forest is burnt and crops are sown into that patch of land, ठीक है, that is being created after the burning of the forest. After 2-3 years, that land is also left fallow for the forest to grow again. So these forests sometimes go out of the control, and the occurrence of these forests is very high in. We saw in the map that we saw in this map. We saw in this map that occurrence of these fires is very high in this region, है ना, Assam, Tripura, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, ठीक है, even Andhra, Arunachal Pradesh also, but this region is very highly prone to. This is a map prepared by satellite image, ठीक है, by satellite, the satellite data से ये map बनाया गया है, and it shows that these areas are having very high incidence of forest fires. These forest fires were actually jhum cultivation fires that were reported by satellite as a forest fire. Okay, that means most of the forest fires in these regions were anthropogenic. Okay, बहुत बार डाउट आता है कि सर यहाँ पे तो रेन फॉरेस्ट हैं, then how is the rate of or the occurrence of forest fires so high? Because it is being caused by the humans. It is not a natural fire. The forest is not burning itself. It is intentionally caused by humans. ठीक है, तो इसलिए, and this region is having high high incidence of forest fires also because of the main anthropogenic reasons are poaching. Okay, sometimes people burn the forest because of their enmity with the forest department officials, and it has been documented in one of the government documents in the Forest Survey of India itself. Okay, the second reason is presence of deciduous forests. Deciduous forests are those forests which shed their leaves over a period of time, and as soon as the winter passes, winter leads to a क्या loss of moisture. ठीक है, winter में moisture का loss हो जाता है, winter के बाद just आ जाती है summer. अब winter caused a loss of moisture and the summers lead to the heating or burning. ठीक है, increase of temperature. तो बहुत सारी पेड़ जो है वो अपने leaf shed करने लगते हैं, due to which the fuel load of the fire increases. Fuel load means the amount of substances that can burn in a forest. For example, litter, ठीक है, fallen trees. Okay, these are all substances that can burn very rapidly, and that amounts to the fuel load. Okay, similarly in these Uttarakhand forests also, presence of cheed and pine trees. Cheed and pine trees is very important for the occurrence of forest fires in these regions. Why? Because cheed and pine trees का जो leaf होती है, basically leaf तो होती नहीं, needles होते हैं, वो needles बहुत, they are very highly prone to burning. Okay, and उनका burning rate भी बहुत high है, and they form a carpet on the forest floor. ठीक है, तो even a very smallest incident of fire may lead to the burning of whole forests, but the tree itself does not burn, and that forest helps sometimes in the regrowth of or regeneration of the ground shrubs and ground का जो flora है उसको regrow करने में help करती है fire. But in these regions also, the main reason of forest fire is what? Anthropogenic reasons. Anthropogenic मतलब man-made reasons. Man-made reasons की वजह से यहाँ पे भी fire बहुत ज़्यादा होती है. तो 94% of the cases, in 94% of the cases, the fire is caused by anthropogenic reasons, या man-made reasons, like lighting of cigarettes, या normal burning, या slash and burn agriculture. Okay. अब natural reasons कौन से हैं? Lightning is one of the biggest natural reason. या rubbing of dry bamboos in the forests. ठीक है, bamboo की जो plants होते हैं, they are very densely packed, and when they dry up, okay, and they rub against each other due to wind in the very warm conditions in summers, so they can also lead to the burning of they can also lead to the forest fires. So you can see कि there are very few reasons of natural fires. Of course, there are also climatic reasons. For example, the El Nino effect. ठीक है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में जो बुश फायर थी, that was primarily caused by El Nino. ठीक है, तो El Nino का मीनिंग क्या है? Excessive warming in the Australian region. ठीक है, that leads to forest fires. Okay, now what are the factors affecting forest fires? Fuel load, temperature, moisture and ignitions. I told you all. Fuel load basically क्या होता है? Fuel load is amount of liter जो कि that acts as fuel. ठीक है. Temperature of course in summers है ना. Ignitions like ignitions में cigarettes है ना, और slash and burn. Okay. And moisture. जो forests होते हैं या hilly forests for example in उत्तराखंड and हिमाचल, उनकी they have slopes, तो they cannot retain water. Okay. जिसकी वजह से क्या है कि as soon as winter passes they lose all their moisture. As soon as summer comes वहाँ पे बहुत dry conditions ground पे create हो जाती हैं. ठीक है, because they cannot hold water. Forest and fires. Now there are two kind of basically ecosystems. The first one is fire independent ecosystems and the second one are fire adapted ecosystems. So forest fires are not always dangerous. Okay, for forest adapted ecosystems, forest fires are a necessary part of their existence. For example, in savanna, South Africa में जो savanna grass है ना, तो उनके existence के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है forest fires का होना. And forest fires are natural in the savanna of South Africa. But fire independent ecosystems like tropical rainforests, for example Amazon basin. Amazon basin is a fire independent ecosystem. That is, fire is not a necessary component of the existence. But savanna and tropical and subtropical savanna of South Africa, वहाँ पे नई shrubs के आने के लिए ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि जो original shrub है वो ख़त्म हो जाए, and that is done by fire itself. वहाँ पे नेचुरल फायर्स ही एक इकोसिस्टम को हर बार रिप्लेनिश करते हैं, न्यूट्रिएंट रिसाइकिल करके, एंड दे प्रोवाइड द स्पेस फॉर द younger plants to come up in the place of older plants. But in fire independent ecosystems like Amazon basin, first of all these are tropical rainforests. तो वहाँ पे ह्यूमिडिटी हाई है और इवेपोट्रांसपिरेशन भी बहुत हाई है, जिसकी वजह से मॉइस्चर बहुत हाई है, तो वहाँ पे फायर का कोई रोल नहीं है. लेकिन इन केस बहुत ज़्यादा वुड की लॉगिंग होना इन फॉरेस्ट में स्टार्ट हो जाए, जिसकी वजह से क्या हो कि the rate of evapotranspiration reduces, and what happens is humidity also decreases, and since they are in the tropical region the temperature is high, जिसकी वजह से they and the most important thing is the fuel load is very high in these ecosystems. Why? Because इनके ट्रॉपिकल रेन फॉरेस्ट के जो ग्राउंड पे या जो फ्लोर जो है, दैट इज हैविंग अ लॉट ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक मैटर टू बर्न, बिकॉज maybe the organic matter in the floor of Amazon basin may be from like 10,000 years back. तो वहाँ पे कार्बन कंटेंट बहुत अच्छा है एंड ह्यूमस भी बहुत है, जिसकी वजह से वहाँ पे देयर इज अ हाई चांस ऑफ बर्निंग. इसीलिए ट्रॉपिकल रेन फॉरेस्ट्स आर मोर prone to the dangerous effects of forest fires. Tropical rainforests are more prone to the dangerous effects of forest fires as compared to the subtropical and savanna of Africa, because इनके तो ecosystem का existence का ही हिस्सा है forest fire. Okay. Now, National Action Plan for Forest Fires were brought in 2018, and 2019 में Forest Survey of India brought its Forest Survey of FSI report, annual forest survey report, है ना, and in that for the first time they considered forest fires. Okay, तो reduce the incidence. First of all, reducing is the incidence of occurrence. The second one is establishment of coordination between departments and local communities to reduce the damages to the life and cattle. ठीक है. The third one is reduce vulnerability. The third one is reduce the vulnerability. The first one is reduce the incidence. ठीक है. And establishment of Center of Excellence at Forest Survey of India. Forest Survey of India ने एक अलर्ट सिस्टम भी स्टार्ट किया है, फॉरेस्ट फायर अलर्ट सिस्टम. इट इज 2004 में स्टार्ट हुआ था वर्जन 1, 2017 में वर्जन 2 एंड 2019 में वर्जन 3. ओके. मैनुअल डेटा प्रोसेसिंग once in a day, only text alerts were there, okay, and direct, it was at district level, okay. The second one was 2017, it was a fully automated process, but it was done using MODIS satellite, MODIS satellite, ठीक है. It was done using MODIS satellite. Now this was done using VIIPRS satellite. It was more advanced than MODIS, okay. Okay. Now this is how the Forest Service FSI's alert system works. Whenever a fire is detected, this satellite detects it. Okay. Whenever there is a fire, there are sensors within the fire-prone areas of the forest. This satellite detects it. It transmits it to National Remote Sensing Center, Remote Sensing Servicing Center. That is sent to the Forest Survey of India. It processes the data, using the data visualizations and all, artificial intelligence. It uploads that data on the One Agni portal of Forest Survey of India. Now again, a very important point here. One Agni portal is owned by Forest Survey of India. Near real time, and it is a near real time monitoring because it is satellite based. पहले क्या होता था, पहले satellite based होने की बजाय in 2004 it was manual, means like IDSP जैसे manual था, वैसे ही forest fire alert system was also manual. It depended a lot upon the feedback of forest officers or the feedback of the local communities, and then SMS to the people who have subscribed to that alert system is sent, and email to state forest department, and state forest department sends their personnel या state forest department के employee जाके आग को बुझाने का काम करते हैं. This is how forest fire alert system works. Now this is a typical image. You can see this. You can see the carpet. This is a cheed and pine forest of Uttarakhand. You can see how it is burning because it is the whole forest floor has been carpeted with the cheed and pine needles, due to which the combustion rate of these needles is very high, okay, because they are not leaves, they don't have vascular systems, they are just leaf needles जो कि बहुत ज़्यादा combustion होती हैं. So I hope you understood. That is all for the day. Thank you. हो गया सर. हाँ, वो सुमन सर ने बोला था कुछ करने को.